Oh, no question. Yeah, please.
No question now, or should we wait until the end?
No. Let's jump in. Here.
Thank you. Nick Bime said that having an investor is like getting married. I think most people don't get married with a dating agency, but dating agencies do exist. So should entrepreneurs look for advisors? Should we look for, I wouldn't say investment banks, but who can help us in navigate the world of funds?
So are you talking about brokers?
I don't know. I'm just an entrepreneur looking for money, and I can talk with some people that I met. But I would like to know if there's a process that you would recommend us to go through, which is more formal, more organized.
Great. Well, let me take a stab at that because I hope the answer is endeavor. And so I've worked in entrepreneur services for almost 3 years in the New York office, which is a really amazing experience because we have nine local offices in all these emerging markets. And you know, we've spent a lot of time kind of connecting our entrepreneurs with mentors and things of that nature. We have a number of other programs, but one of the things that kept coming up was entrepreneurs wanted to meet with investors in New York, and specifically Tim Draper. Tim Draper's on our global board. He's one of the biggest names in venture capital, and so I would get 3 phone calls a week just from entrepreneurs who said, "Hey Quinn, introduce me to Tim Draper." I had to tell them no because one, we didn't have the information we needed to know whether it was the right time for them to raise capital, and most likely Tim Draper did not want to meet with them to begin with because Tim Draper is not investing in Uruguayan companies, at least not directly at
You
this
know what
point.
happens to those companies when you email him or send them to him?
They come to you, huh?
Yeah.
Interesting. So Simon is on our next panel, and he's a partner at DFJ Fur Capital, which is one of the affiliate partner funds of DFJ based in Silicon Valley. And so Simon gets all the the referrals that come from me. But my point here is that Katie Gordon, my colleague, and I, with the Mentor Capital Program, are trying to address this problem. And it's something I just noticed over the years that a lot of entrepreneurs needed capital. We needed to do something. So we've tried to build a platform, and we're slowly building it up. But we think we've built, two parts. One, the part where we train entrepreneurs, arm them with the tools, the pitching tools, the templates, the kind of information that you're getting here today about how funds are organized and structured, and then a platform to present your investments to investors, and apparently you can use that as leverage in the negotiating table. But then the second component is we're building a community of local investors and international investors interested in these markets. And it's not going to happen overnight, but we're building a community, we're a database, we're eventually going to put this online so that we can have these pre-qualified deals, and that's what they are to investors. And that's a valuable commodity to investors to be able to find you guys, and especially if they've kind of gone through a training program where they are very well versed in articulating their value proposition. And then, we are that platform, and we're just getting started here, to be frank. But I think Endeavor can play a really big role. And I don't know, John alluded to that earlier. If you want to add anything to that, but you've been around the network for a really long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll throw it, to the practitioners like you guys. How often it happens that firms get in contacts with VCs, directly and just kind of randomly, or whether somebody's really kind of shepherding them around. I mean, I kind of stumbled into this, shepherd role, godfather role, whatever, totally by accident. And it was an interesting experience, and I'm very happy with it, but it wasn't planned. So I'm, in the real world, which, I'm not a VC guy by practice, be curious to, how that works. In the US, it's probably a little bit more of a pattern, to see people coming in and so on, but down here, I think it's still all kind of evolving, right?
That's right. In the United States, there's sort of two sides to that question. You have institutional brokers, people who almost make a living off of doing professional introductions, and they aren't perceived generally very well because they're often making money off the entrepreneurs. The informal networks are of course very strong, which is the case in which your situation falls. And it's akin to I've compared it to the film industry. It's, for a screenwriter to pitch a script to a producer is almost impossible, but you go through their lawyers, you go through their friends, and you manage to get an introduction one way or another. So informal networks are extremely important. Here in Brazil, early stage, it's even more difficult. People don't know that I'm here initially, so I have to be out there meeting people, sourcing deals, finding opportunities. The VCs, like Eric at Monosheets, have lots of people coming to them, and I don't think he has any shortage of deal flow and opportunities coming this way.
I want to ask something. If I had went to the VC before I went to the MC program, probably the answer would have said no. And that's very important because what they say, one thing is to get introduced to the fund, but when you go to the fund, you have to know why are you there, what you have to show, what you have to answer. So homework is very, very, very important. So it's not just introduction, but when you are there, you know why you are there, and you can really pitch and have the answer for the right questions.
Other questions?
We start. Thanks. We also on the process of finding and contacting venture capital. We already had a formal proposal from one of them in Chile also. But we faced a couple of issues or things I would like your opinion about. We are a regional company. We are operating in 5 countries, and I think Endeavor is speaking or is pushing local VC, local venture capital. But for us, local venture capital is not enough anymore. It's very difficult to raise local venture capital for a regional organization. But for the US, as we are not in the US actually, it's quite difficult to find venture capital for this kind of operation. So we are just in a between two area, and we find it quite complex to find the right kind of capital for regional organizations that are not in the US. That's the first question.
I certainly don't have the broader perspective on this, but I mean, in my brief experience in this area, it's true that the cross-border risk, even the U.S. into somewhere down here, and Venezuela especially, is another hurdle against, I think, a U.S.-based VC. And I'm sure even being in Brazil-based VC, investing, in Peru or wherever, it's not to be overcome, no doubt about it, but, it's another hurdle to come through. So, I think to cast but you never know, so to cast your net widely, now, there's these evolving pools of VC money here, West Coast, East Coast, wherever else. It's probably worth, trying across the board because you just never quite know where you're going to hit. I mean, from the U.S. side, one thing we sort of dressed, Open English was kind of dressed up to be a U.S. VC deal, despite its cross-border risk, by, it's Delaware, the parent is Delaware C Corp, and, we're going to put this corporate office in Miami, it's very small, and all our technology is, is hosted on Amazon servers, in Florida, it's not Venezuela, and we did all that sort of stuff to protect, the intellectual property and this and that. So that helped a lot. In the end, we got money outside, but I think you have to, think smart about all that stuff to put yourself on the other side of the table and say, how are you at least thinking about, your country risk and, your trademarks and, all that sort of stuff and protect it to the extent possible. So even if you get money from outside the States, dressing yourself up as much as possible as a U.S. company might not be a bad idea. It's more legal expense, no question about that. We pay a lot of legal expenses. But, in the end, I think the Salvadorian partners, all that stuff is actually very important to them. They didn't want Salvadorian risk either, for that matter.